Hello students, I am Dhiraj Naik, Assistant Professor in Department of Botany at Bajaj College of Science, Vata. Today we are going to discuss on the topic plant breeding. Plant breeding or the crop genetic improvement is the production of new improved crop varieties for use by the farmers. These new varieties may have higher yield, have improved grain quality, increased disease resistance, or may less prone to lodging. Ideally, it will have new combinations of all the characters which are significantly better than those which are already available. This new variety will have new combination of genes which plant breeder has to put together from those available gene pool from that species. So therefore, science of plant breeding is playing a great role from the earlier to current in the field of agriculture to keep the accessibility of food in the world. It is art, it is a science, and it is also considered as a business. Modern plant breeding is a discipline that is firmly rooted in the science of genetics. As an applied science, breeders have opportunities to apply principles and technologies from all several scientific disciplines to manipulate plants from specific purposes. Now let us see some plant breeders throughout the world. There are many successful plant breeders in India as well as in the world. To name few, Norman Borlaug is an American agronomist who is known as a father of green revolution, mainly because of his excellent contribution in preparing semi-dwarf varieties of wheat. In India, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan has contributed immensely in rice breeding, and he is also considered as a father of Indian Green Revolution. Recently, Dr. K. Vinod Prabhu, who is a plant breeder for his work on building resistance in a wheat, mustard, and rice by using molecular markers, he is a head of genetics at Indian Agriculture Research Institute. He has recently got award Rafi Ahmad Kidwai Award for his outstanding research. He has contributed various methodologies and breeding strategies that led to a release of 17 varieties, 8 of which are for wheat, 2 of barley, 5 of mustard, and 2 of basmati rice. So before we begin the fundamental concept of plant breeding, I encourage all my students to explore career opportunities in area of plant breeding with the help of new tools of molecular biology, since I generally call you as a next generation botanist. Today we are going to discuss on fundamental concept of plant breeding. So in this discussion we will have first what is plant breeding, definition of plant breeding, role of plant breeding, challenges for plant breeders. So what are the challenges for plant breeders during the development of hybrid variety, and what are the objectives of plant breeding. So first let's go to the topic, what is plant breeding. Plant breeding is a science based on principles of genetics and aims at improving the genetic makeup of crop plants. Now what is mean by this genetic makeup of crop plant is basically if you are looking for a say tall variety, you should be looking at those varieties which shows a plant height, better plant height. Similarly, let's say if you are looking for a semi-dwarf variety, then the dwarfness of that particular variety is more beneficial, and that is the basically a phenotype of that particular crop plant. So plant breeding is also a field of applied science that involves changing genetic content or the genotype of the plant improvement. So the plant breeders want to improve the genotypes of the crop plants for a betterment of traits. It is also considered as a science of changing the traits of the plants to produce desired characters. For example, let me give you an example of a tomato. Tomato at the initial stages of domestication was a very small berry-like fruit. Now you can see that it is almost more than a egg size. So that kind of a change in the fruit size is basically done with the help of plant breeding techniques. Let's go to the definition of plant breeding. There are various definitions, but one of the definitions which is written by or approved by Dr. Chaudhary, can be defined as plant breeding means basically improvement in the heredity of crops and production of new varieties which are far better than the original type. So you need to improve the varieties or improve the heredity of crops with the help of plant breeding. Smith has also defined plant breeding by it is considering as an art and science of improving the genetic patterns of the plant in relation to their economic use. So it is basically both art and as well as science to basically improve the varieties. It is also considered as an art and science for the improvement of crop plant science. Now there are various roles of plant breeding in our life. First thing, as we can see, that the food is one of the major component or major character for the plant breeding. We need varieties which will have higher grain size, and the grain number should be also high. So it will be helpful for the food grains, also indirectly for meat and milk. Basically, when you are going to develop new varieties for fodder crops, these fodder crops will have higher enrichment in their nutrient sources, which will give a better quality milk as well as better quality meat. Similarly, just like food, we also want plant breeding to be developing better varieties of fiber crops such as cotton, as we know that the Wardha as well as the entire Vidarbha is known for cotton plantation as well as cotton cultivation. We need a lot of better varieties of cotton which will give a higher quality clothing material. Similarly, just like a clothing, we also need biofuels. We also need some crop plants where, for example, euphorbia and jatropha, this can be used as a biodiesel crop. Similarly, just like a biodiesel crop, we also need maize, which is an important source for synthesis of ethanol production. Just like fuels, we also need certain medicinal plants which can be used for drugs. For example, recently because of coronavirus, we are looking for those medicinal plants which can show antiviral activity. So you need to also do a lot of breeding in this medicinal plant to have an enhanced concentration of secondary metabolites. We also need a lot of improvement in floristic or floriculture industry, mainly for having those flowers which will have a lot of better shelf life when we cut them from the mother plant. So we need those traits which will keep the higher shelf life of this flowering plant. So these are the different roles of the plant breeding: food, clothing, crops or fuel crops, drugs and entertainment. Now let's go to the what are the challenges of plant breeders. There are many challenges. First challenge is increasing, because of increasing population. We need to increase the food productivity per area. At present, world population stands 6.3 billion and will reach to 10 to 12 billion during the next 50 to 70 years. The main problem from the breeding aspect is population is growing much faster than the food increase in the food productivity. So we have technically we have food which is limited as compared to the ever increasing population. So we have to have higher increasing or high yielding varieties as compared to per area, and therefore in order to increase the food productivity, we will use harmful chemicals like agrochemicals and pesticides as well as lots of fertilizers. But we know that these harmful agrochemicals as well as fertilizers has already spoiling the ecosystem, and therefore we need those high yielding varieties which will grow in a less agrochemicals, in less fertilizers and in less water. Second challenge is squeezing arable land. Day by day, the total arable land, the arable land is basically where we can do cultivation. So the total arable land for agriculture is decreasing due to a lot of urbanization and industrial development, and because of many land use management activities which generally happens. Let's say, for example, in case of developing new highways or roads or development of new areas for industrial development, those areas are basically captured, which is basically a land of agriculture. So breeders have to tackle this problem by releasing improved varieties of major crops, which gives better production per unit area. So the area will be limited day by day, but you have to have a increased production per unit area. The third challenge, which is basically erratic rainfall, which is I think quite common in India. In India, the rainfall is erratic, unpredictable and unevenly distributed, and this is causing a serious problem in our rain-fed agricultural activity. Over 80% of annual rainfall is received in 4 rainy months of June to September, and therefore the entire agriculture of that particular year depends upon the amount of annual rainfall which is available in that particular area. And therefore those varieties which can tolerate dry spells, basically the dry part of the year, and perform better at a low water availability, which are needed to develop by Indian breeders. And the last one is mechanization. Since we are growing a lot of semi-dwarf varieties, the varieties where the any kind of a harvester can easily harvest those fruits or those grains. Therefore, mechanization is important. We have to develop those varieties which will be amenable to that mechanization. So we want to make varieties where we can able to apply fertilizers, manures and irrigation and many other cultivate practices. Even the harvesting practice should be suitable enough. So semi-dwarf trait in wheat has been found to be a heavily mechanized character, because of which the any type of a large size harvester we can use in a wheat land. Now let us see the objectives of plant breeding. The first objective of plant breeding is higher productivity. Increasing yield is one of the most ultimate aim of the plant breeder, and this can be achieved by developing the most efficient genotypes which will have more productivity, more yield efficiency as well as physiological efficiency. Higher productivity is one of the in fact most important objective of plant breeding, because if you have those varieties which can yield higher, which can give more fruits, which can give more inflorescences, which can give more grains per plant, per acre or per hectare, then those varieties will be showing a higher productivity. Similarly, like higher productivity, improved quality is another objective of plant breeding. Improve quality of agriculture products, especially the grain quality, as well as the quality in the form of nutrition of various crop plants. For example, grain size, color, the milling and the baking qualities of wheat are some of the important characters for improvement in wheat. Similarly, just like wheat, higher nutrient contents in the grains of other cereals, for example, iron enriched rice, low phytate rice, high zinc rice, and vitamin A fortified maize these are also important characters for improving the quality of crop plants. Now let us see the next objective of plant breeding, that is disease and insect resistance. Since we are doing a lot of monoculture, for example in Vidarbha and in Wardha as well, we grow in a rainfed area, we grow cotton as well as tur, and almost every village will grow cotton varieties, and therefore this kind of a monoculture activity will favor the growth of various types of fungal and bacterial diseases, as well as they will also enhance the insect density as well as insect frequency in such kind of monoculture activity, and therefore you require those varieties which can resist to insect attack. Insect resistant variety as well as fungal or bacterial disease resistant varieties, which basically helps to stabilize the crop pattern as well as stabilize the yield of that particular crop, and therefore you require one of the in fact very serious disease in wheat growing area of our country is a rust, and therefore we require rust resistant varieties in our country. The fourth plant objective of plant breeding is variety for new season. You require new varieties for new season that have been developed by adjusting the growth cycle of the variety. So if you can manage the phenology, the growing period of the varieties, then we should able to grow that particular variety in available growing season. For example, traditionally maize is a kharif crop, it is not a rabi crop, but scientists are now able to synthesize new varieties where we can grow the maize into winter as well as in summer season. Similarly, mung is also grown in the summer crop in addition to main kharif crop. So there are many crops which used to grow in a kharif season, now we can grow them in a rabi season as well as in the summer season. So the next objective of plant breeding is a modification of agronomic characteristic. We also want those varieties where we can able to modify some of the agronomic characters such as plant height, tillering, branching, the habit of the plant, whether we can have an erect or trailing habit. All these characters are often desirable characters for the improvement of that particular variety. For example, dwarfness in cereals is generally associated with the lodging resistance as well as fertilizer responsiveness. So it is very clear that semi-dwarf variety of wheat has been always shown a fertilizer responsive, and it has been shown a very high yield in our country. So if we modify these agronomic characters, then we can have a better yield as well. The next objective of plant breeding is change in a maturity duration. For example, if we it permits basically new crop rotation, often extend the crop area. So if we develop wheat varieties which are suitable for late planting, can also permit a rice wheat rotation. So for example, if you have a wheat variety whose maturity duration is little longer or little shorter, then we can grow these particular varieties into mix with other crop plants as well. So if we can, this is this particular character change in maturity duration, which will help in having multiple cropping system. For example, in Vidarbha we use cotton mixed with the tur varieties. So if we have more pulses other than tur, then we can have three crops in the same area. So this particular objective change in maturity duration will help to have a multiple cropping pattern. The next objective is photo and thermo insensitivity. If we can develop photo and thermo insensitive wheat and photo insensitive rice variety, that can help to permit their cultivation in new area. For example, cultivation of wheat in Kerala or in West Bengal, as well as cultivation of rice in Punjab and Himachal Pradesh, because these rice as well as wheat is a photosensitive plant. So if we can create a photo insensitive plant, then we can grow them in a different geographical area. Similarly, a next objective, which is synchronous maturity. If we have a synchronous mature varieties, this will be highly desirable in crop where several peaking are necessary. For example, in case of mung bean, in case of pigeon pea, cotton, where if you get flowering maturity as well as fruiting maturity, which is synchronous, which is showing at the same time, then peaking is highly desirable and it is possible as well. So let us see the next objective of plant breeding, non-shattering characteristics. Non-shattering characteristics is very helpful for the oil crops or some crops where the grain or the fruit is important. It is absolutely helpful for those crops like mung, castor, soybean, where shattering is one of the measuring problem in commercial varieties. For example, by the time you go into that particular field, and if it is heavily ripened, the seeds are going to get shattered before you collect them. So there is no point of growing that particular crop if they are showing this shattering problem. So you require non-shattering characteristic as one of the major objective of plant breeding, especially in soybean, castor and mung varieties. Determinate growth. Sometimes we can see the indeterminate growth in many crop plants. So if we can develop varieties with a determinate growth, that is desirable in crops like mung, pigeon pea and cotton, because the indeterminate growth will keep having vegetative growth, and sometimes just having vegetative growth is not going to serve the purpose of that particular crop. For example, in case of cotton, if you have just a lot of vegetative growth and no flowering, then that indeterminate vegetative growth is not going to help the cotton breeders or cotton growers as well. So you have to have a determinate growth where there will be a complete stop or complete end of vegetative growth, and then it will start the synchronous flowering as well as fruiting as well. So next objective is dormancy. Dormancy play a beneficial and sometimes harmful role according to need of the growers. For example, if you want to next crop immediately started after harvesting the previous crop, in such case dormancy is not required. But if you want to store the seed for future purpose, period of dormancy is absolutely essential. Yes, so having dormancy is important. For example, if you are having a say kharif crop and you want to use that particular seed from your field for the next season, then that seed has to stay dormant for the entire Rabi season as well as summer season. So dormancy sometimes can be beneficial, can be harmful. So it depends upon the crop, and it is one of the objective of plant breeding as well. Then the next objective is the elimination of toxic substances. Now some crops they have toxic chemicals, or they have these secondary metabolites which are not good or safe for consumption. Especially we should not have those chemicals getting entered into our stomach. For example, kesri dal, or which is also called as a lakhi dal, which is Lathyrus odoratus. This seeds has a neurotoxin and that causes paralysis in humans. So if we consume a lot of lakhi dal or kesri dal in our diet, then there is a likely chances that we will have some issues. Similarly, the elimination of erucic acid from brassic oil, gossip oil from the seed cotton, because there is a lot of seed cotton oil which is used in Maharashtra as well as in other states of our country, where so the seed cotton oil is used for preparation of food, for preparation of many other items. Seed cotton oil has this gossip oil which is not good for the consumption, so we should be able to create those varieties which will have less toxic substances. So we should able to eliminate these toxic substances with the help of breeding. Please refer to a book written by Singh, Plant Breeding Principles and Methods. This is published by Kalyani Publisher, New Delhi, India. Thank you.